Imagine spending 10 years building the perfect lie. I'm talking Ocean's 11-level scheming, elaborate software, secret codes, engineers sworn to secrecy. You fool governments. You fool environmental agencies. You fool 11 million customers. And then, three nerds from West Virginia with $70,000 in a used Honda Civic blow the whole thing wide open. That's right. The biggest automotive fraud in history, a scam that would eventually cost $35 billion, was busted by a university research team whose entire budget was less than a Tesla Model S. This is the story of dieselgate, where German engineering met German scheming, where clean diesel meant cleanly lying to your face. And honestly, it's so absurd you'll laugh. Then you'll realize your tax dollars paid to clean this mess up, and you'll stop laughing. Buckle up, this one's wild. It's 2005. Facebook just launched. We're all wearing Hollister hoodies, and Volkswagen has a brilliant idea. Hey, let's make Americans love diesel cars. Now, if you're under 25, you might not remember this, but diesel cars in America had the reputation of being about as sexy as a colonoscopy. They were loud, smelly, slow, and mostly driven by either European tourists or your weird uncle who knows better than the sheeple. Americans associated diesel with trucks that rolled coal and sounded like angry lawnmowers having an existential crisis. But Volkswagen had a problem. They'd invested billions into diesel technology. The European market loved diesel. Germany ran on diesel. Half of Europe's cars were diesel. So VW's marketing team had a meeting that probably went like this. How do we make Americans buy diesel? Make it not suck? Too expensive. Next idea. Tell them it's good for the environment? But it's not. They don't know that. Marketing. And thus, clean diesel was born. The greatest oxymoron since jumbo shrimp or airline food. The ads were everywhere. Happy families driving through pristine forests. Voiceovers talking about German engineering excellence. Awards from environmental groups. Clean diesel, more power, better mileage, saves the planet. It was perfect, except for one teeny tiny problem. See, diesel engines produce nitrogen oxide, NOx for short. Think of NOx as the angry cousin of regular pollution. It causes asthma, heart disease, and premature death. Fun stuff. American and European regulations said, your cars can't emit more than X amount of NOx. To actually meet those limits, VW needed expensive emission control systems. Urea injection, catalytic converters, complex exhaust treatment. This would make their cars more expensive, bad, less powerful, bad, worse mileage, really bad. Basically, everything Americans didn't want, catastrophically bad. So Volkswagen's engineers looked at this impossible equation and thought, what if we just don't? Let me introduce you to the defeat device. This is some genuine evil genius stuff. Volkswagen's engineers created software that could detect when the car was being tested. Like the car knew when it was in trouble. Here's how it worked. The software monitored things like, is the steering wheel moving? No. Is the car on a dyno? Yes. Has the engine been running for exactly the test duration? Yes. Are we about to get caught? Time to be good. When all these conditions were met, the car thought, oh snap, it's test day, and activated maximum emission controls. During the test, that VW was cleaner than a monk's conscience. Barely any NOx. Passed with flying colors. Gold stars all around. But the second you drove it off the lot, boom! The software switched modes. Emission controls dialed back. The car performed beautifully. More power, better mileage, smoother ride. It was also releasing up to 40 times the legal limit of NOx into the air. 40 times. That's not a little cheating. That's not creative interpretation of regulations. That's showing up to a marathon in a Ferrari and claiming you ran it. And they got away with it for years. 2008, dieselgate cars hit the market. 2009, more awards, more sales. 2010, Green Car of the Year. 2011, sales in America are booming. 2012, VW becomes the world's second largest automaker. Somewhere in Wolfsburg, Germany, executives were high-fiving. The impossible had been done. 11 million cars sold worldwide, billions in profit, environmental awards displayed in the lobby, and absolutely nobody suspected a thing. Well, almost nobody. Enter our heroes, a tiny team of researchers at West Virginia University. And I cannot stress enough how uncinematic these people were. No car chases, no hacking montages, just three guys with a portable emission tester and a dream. In 2013, an environmental group called the International Council on Clean Transportation had an idea. European diesel is so clean now. Let's test some VW diesels in America and prove diesel works. Their budget? About $70,000. That's like half of a single Super Bowl commercial. They bought a portable emission testing system, basically a fancy tailpipe sniffer you strap to a car, and hit the road. They tested three cars. A BMW X5 passed fine, a VW Jetta, a VW Passat, big The BMW was clean, great, diesel works. But the two Volkswagens, the numbers were bonkers. One showed 15 times the legal limit. The other showed 35 times. The researchers thought their equipment was broken. They calibrated it, ran the tests again. Same results. They contacted Volkswagen. Hey guys, weird question, but why are your cars spewing toxic death clouds? VW's response was basically, oh wow, that's weird. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Maybe add some fresh diesel fluid? Could be the temperature, might be the altitude. Have you considered that Mercury is in retrograde? This went on for 2 years. The researchers did everything VW suggested. They cleaned systems, changed fuel, adjusted for temperature, sacrificed a goat under a full moon. Okay, maybe not that last one. Nothing changed. The cars were still emission-spewing monsters. Meanwhile, VW kept stalling. They issued voluntary recalls that mysteriously didn't fix anything. They blamed software glitches. They suggested maybe American diesel was different. The researchers kept pushing. They shared data with CARB, the California Air Resources Board. California doesn't mess around with emissions. They basically invented environmental regulation. By 2015, the EPA had joined the investigation, and in September they gave Volkswagen an ultimatum. Explain these numbers, or we're not certifying your 2016 models. Suddenly, this wasn't just embarrassing. This was billions of dollars in car sales about to evaporate. VW couldn't stall anymore. On September 3, 2015, VW engineers sat down with California regulators and said the words that would doom the company. Yeah, there's a defeat device. It's intentional. It's in all our diesel cars. Whoops. Whoops! 15 days later, the EPA went public, and that's when things got spicy. September 18, 2015, a date that will live in automotive infamy. The EPA's announcement hit like a nuclear bomb. Within one trading day, Volkswagen stock dropped 30%. $26 billion in market value just gone. Poof, Thanos snapped. The CEO, Martin Winterkorn, released a statement that's comedy gold. We have broken the trust of our customers. You think? You didn't break trust. You weaponized deception. You turned lying into an art form. 6 days later, Winterkorn resigned. But that was just the beginning of the executive parade. Criminal investigations launched in dozens of countries. The U.S. Department of Justice showed up. The FBI got involved. German prosecutors started raiding offices, and the lawsuits. Oh, buddy, the lawsuits. By the time the dust settled, $14.7 billion to U.S. customers in buybacks, $2.8 billion in criminal fines, $1.5 billion for environmental violations, another $10 billion in Europe, billions more in South Korea, Australia, Canada grand total by 2023, over $35 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than NASA's annual budget, more than the GDP of Bolivia. You could buy every Subway restaurant in the world. And Martin Winterkorn, he can never visit America again. If he steps off a plane in the U.S., he's immediately arrested and faces 20 years in prison. One executive, Oliver Schmidt, made that mistake. He flew to Miami for vacation in 2017, arrested at the airport, spent 7 years in federal prison, worst vacation ever. But here's the kicker. Volkswagen wasn't alone. After dieselgate broke, regulators started side-eyeing other manufacturers. And guess what? Fiat Chrysler, caught with defeat devices. Mercedes-Benz, allegations and investigations. Renault, suspicious emission patterns. PSA Group, under scrutiny. Turns out half the diesel industry was playing the same game. Volkswagen just got caught first. So here's the crazy part. Volkswagen survived, like they really shouldn't have. This scandal should have been the end. Total collapse, bankruptcy. The whole company sold for parts on Craigslist. But no, they pulled off one of the greatest corporate comebacks in history. How? They went all in on electric vehicles. VW looked at the smoldering crater where their reputation used to be and said, "You know what? We lied about clean diesel, but what if we actually make clean cars this time?" They announced $100 billion in EV investment, launched the ID series to compete with Tesla, became one of Europe's top EV manufacturers. The marketing practically writes itself. Yeah, we screwed up diesel, but these cars actually clean. Promise. For real this time. We super duper mean it. And somehow, it's working? Sales have recovered in most markets. The brand survived. They're still one of the world's largest automakers. Sure, some people will never trust them again. US market share hasn't fully recovered. Dieselgate is literally the first thing people think of when you say Volkswagen. But they're still here, still selling millions of cars, still in business. It's like if the Titanic sank, but then they just built a new Titanic, and people were like, yeah, okay, I'll give it another shot. So what did we learn from this $35 billion dumpster fire? Lesson 1. Never underestimate nerds with testing equipment and too much free time. They will end you. Lesson 2. If you're going to commit fraud, maybe don't do it in a way that literally poisons the air. Just a thought. Lesson 3. Clean diesel is up there with honest politician and fun root canal in the Oxymoron Hall of Fame. Lesson 4. German engineering is amazing at both building great cars and elaborate fraud schemes. And finally, Lesson 5. The cover-up is always worse than the crime. If VW had just admitted early on, hey, we can't meet these standards yet, they'd have paid some fines and moved on. Instead, they created a decade-long conspiracy that cost them more than most countries' military budgets. But hey, at least we got some spicy memes and a great story out of it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into corporate chaos, smash that subscribe button. We've got plenty more stories about companies that thought they were too big to fail and learned otherwise. Next time, how Enron convinced everyone they were profitable while literally selling nothing. Spoiler, jail time was involved. Until then, remember, if something sounds too good to be true, it's probably a Volkswagen diesel.